Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome to FBI headquarters in Quantico, Virginia, where we are analyzing our latest entry in the Houselights saga, which is House of Demme. We're looking at the works of Jonathan Demme in the 1990s, kicking everything off with the, absolute culture-busting hit Silence of the Lambs. And joining me, I'm John Mills. I'm Special Agent John Mills. Joining me are my dear friends, the esteemed Dr. Tristan Riddell, and of course, FBI profiler Darren Moser, known as Dr. Sci-Fi in the FBI ranks. Darren, how are you doing today here in the lovely woods around Quantico? I noticed you got a little bit of a sweat going on. I don't know if you should be jogging in sweats in the summertime, but hey, that's me. So how are you doing today?
I mean, it's odd considering we filmed this during the winter, but yes, none of my FBI colleagues take me seriously. Dr. Sci-Fi is a derogatory that they give me. It has nothing to do with FBI profiling, but yes, I'm very excited to talk about this movie, having it been the first time I've seen it.
And Dr. Riddell, how do you enjoy wasting taxpayer money with a giant cake where everybody gets too large a slice?
Well, I just want to say that you spell my name Riddell, and this is my podcast, and I will not have you guys coming in here and taking things over. I am not a middleman.
That, you know what? I appreciate you pointing that out. Meanwhile, I will go down this dark hallway to, of course, we're talking about the Silence of the Lambs. We want you to talk about this show. Houselights is available on all of the podcasting platforms. Go to Apple Podcasts, give us a star rating and review. Usual spiel about how that helps everybody. It makes the world a better place. And of course, you can find us online at Join Nerd Party on Twitter and the Nerd Party on Facebook and Instagram. Nothing on TikTok yet, but tomorrow's a new day. Who knows? Maybe we'll be inventing the Houselights dance and it'll go viral. Maybe someday. But I've got to ask, of course, this is our routine question. Darren, I think you've tipped your hand already. This is your first time watching The Silence of the Lambs. Somehow you've missed this specific train over the last 3 decades.
Somehow, as a film major, I did not watch this film, which now that I'm looking up all the awards it won that year, I'm a little ashamed of myself. But I think it just comes down to the subject matter. I'm not a huge horror fan, and I know this is psychological horror, which is a little more palatable for me. I didn't have an issue with anything on the screen this time watching. But I think I knew, that moment of what did you see, Clarice? What did you see? And just a little bit of, that she interviews him, he possibly escapes. It's almost like 2 movies, really. Like, there's obviously the plots are connected in her interview and the search for Buffalo Bill, but it's very much A plot, B plot. Like, it's almost kind of strange for such a well-defined movie, to not really have a lot of overlap. Like, really, Hannibal has nothing to do with the Buffalo Bill side, except for the information he provides.
Mm-hmm. Very true. I would hope, of course, that by this point you would also know that fava beans apparently go with Chianti. That's probably one of the most famous recipe tips in history. Tristan, I know that this is not your first time watching The Silence of the Lambs, but when did they stop screaming for you the first time?
I honestly, I have no idea.
Really?
This is so weird because normally I have like a vague conception of how I watched it, whether it was like a Blockbuster rental or I saw it on TV, during a specific event or something like that. That's the only thing I can think of, is that I saw it on TV for the first time. I mean, I really have no memory. It's kind of like that thing where it's just always been around. I've always known about it. I've always seen it. It's something that was ever present. I can't give a specific instance where I remember where I've seen it. Like, I just I remember owning it on DVD, owning it on Blu-ray, then owning it on 4K Blu-ray. I never owned it on VHS, but I think I read that it was one of, if not the first widely available VHS movies available to the consumer.
Yeah, I'd say Batman in '89 really kicked that door open, and then Silence of the Lambs rode that wave. Like it definitely was a must own. I saw this in the movie. I'm resident old man on the show. I saw this in the movie theater with my brother, who's older than I am, and we saw it because my brother, when he was younger, very much envisioned pursuing a career in criminology. And so he read about all of these sorts of things. He is a deep wealth of knowledge about serial killers and the types of people that the FBI would profile, and very good at it too. It's kind of a shame that he never. I suspect that if he had been able to pursue that, he would have wound up catching people, because that's just how focused and how analytically gifted he is. But being his little brother, of course, I sort of inherited a little bit of that obsession. But the Silence of the Lambs is sort of the starting point for me on that, because we go to the movie. I can still remember which theater in the cinema I saw it in our hometown, watching it on the screen. I still remember the moment where she's driving down the road, and I was a big Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers fan. And so American Girl came on, and I just started singing along, just like, it's like this tense scene. And I'm like, da, 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 da. I'm like having fun. But I remember at the end of the movie, just both of us sort of gobsmacked, like, wow, this is really great. And I went through most of my life from that point forward. It took a very long time for me to suddenly know and understand this started life as a sequel to Michael Mann's Manhunter, and just over time transformed into what it is. Because if you haven't seen Manhunter, it's very different in its structure and its tone and its adaptation. It was originally called Red Dragon because it's based on the first book in the series. They changed the title. So nobody ever made the connection, because Brian Cox, who played Hannibal Lecter in that movie, at the time had a standing rule against playing characters in sequels or reprising characters. And that's how Anthony Hopkins winds up getting the role. Now, Darren, as you look at this for the first time and you see all of these sort of performances, you see all of these sort of things come together, I'm very interested to know from you. Obviously, you have all of this knowledge in your brain. You know who Anthony Hopkins is. You know who, all this basically made him a household name.
Yeah.
When you were done with this movie, what was your reaction to him? Like, do you think that this performance, this is that career-making performance, or do you think people were just caught up in the novelty of the character?
No, it's career-making performance. I mean, I know he won the Oscar for it, and so did Jodie Foster. And yeah, it's unnerving. I mean, the from the method of non-blinking to the cadence of his voice. We were chatting a little bit before recording that apparently he'd based some of his mannerisms off of like HAL 9000's voice, which once you think that, it totally clicks. Just that kind of, not deadpan, but just very controlled, never yelling, never raising the pitch of his voice. And especially the not blinking is really unnerving, as he's often looking right in the camera, which is also disturbing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it all kind of comes together, and the way the story unfolds, I mean, you even have fear when she's on the other side of the glass. Like, that he can't get to her, but it's like he can get to her with his mind. And he's, in the beginning, I felt like she was kind of, obviously the quid pro quo and the, I scratch your back, you scratch my back, and I share about myself. It felt like she was kind of revealing a little quicker than she probably needed to in the beginning, where she's, really kind of, I mean, she literally was just told before meeting him, like, don't let him in your mind. And she kind of threw that part of the playbook out for the greater good. But not to say that I think it wasn't a good back and forth and a good dynamic. But yeah, his performance was exceptional.
Tristan, in terms of this being a sequel, how do you feel about that? Do you feel that this is a movie that dissociates itself from its predecessor too much? Or do you think that one of the strengths of this was that it doesn't fall into that? It doesn't make too much reference to a movie people haven't seen. Do you think that the success of the structure of this film and why it appealed to audiences has to do with disassociating itself from Manhunter? Or do you think it succeeds in spite of it?
I think it succeeds not really in spite of it, but due to ignorance. I mean, Manhunter was a flop.
True.
And financially, I should say. And I don't think a lot of individuals knew that it was a sequel or knew about the novels, because this was before the dawn of the age of, like, you know, where, like, Hunger Games and Divergent, everything like that, where everything, or Harry Potter, where everything was advertised as, like, you know, like, based on the worldwide claimed, you know, novel series and everything like that. It was written by some ridiculous number, like 65%, if not more, of movies are actually based off of novels. And so it just kind of became an accepted thing where, like, oh yeah, it's probably a book first. And so because Manhunter wasn't a financial success or a critical success, and different people were playing, different actors were playing different characters, and there was only like 2 people who were in it, and they were playing minor roles, but they weren't even playing the same characters. I don't think there was really any connection in the media conscious or the audiences as well. And so I really don't even think it was a factor, to be honest. And this is a movie that is, you know, it's based off of, it's kind of like a Poirot, you know, novel or movie, where you don't really need to see the previous ones to know what's going on. Like, you don't need to read a Harris novel to understand what's going on in Silence of the Lambs, because it's about Clarice and Buffalo Bill, the Clarice and the Buffalo Bill case. Like, she just goes to Hannibal Lecter for assistance. And just like with Red Dragon, you know, like the book, or if you want to look at Manhunter, you know, like they go to Hannibal Lecter to catch the Red Dragon. You know, it's just, it's the same kind of thing. Like, you don't really need to, it's not about Hannibal Lecter's origins or how he got in there, so to speak. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that, like, because we learn more about his origins and everything like that. But you know what I mean? Where there's, it's kind of like the, for a much more modern reference, what's it called? The Glass Onion? Something like that, like the sequel to Knives Out. Like, you don't.
I didn't even know that's what it was going to be called.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was called. Yeah.
Well, I thought it was just Knives Out too.
I was thinking it was more like The Road Warrior. Like, The Road Warrior, often a lot of people,
I agree.
There you go,
think of, like, a lot of people, or some people don't even know that Mad Max was a movie before that. And they're actually very tonally different. Like, society's still kind of functioning in Mad Max. Like, it is gone by Road Warrior. So if you start your Road Warrior journey with The Road Warrior, or Mad Max The Road Warrior, you're really not worse for wear. It's a perfect jumping off spot.
That's a much better analogy than The Glass Onion, which no one has really heard of, and it hasn't even been made yet. But there you
go. Now, jumping back to casting, Darren, because this is your first time seeing it and experiencing Jodie Foster's award-winning turn here. And she's a terrific actress. She's, even before The Silence of the Lambs, she was a household name. Everybody knows Jodie Foster. You put Jodie Foster's name on a marquee, everybody's like, oh, Jodie Foster's in that, right? However, Demme's first choice was Michelle Pfeiffer, because he had done Married to the Mob, a comedy with her back in 1988. When she turned it down, he went to Meg Ryan, who turned it down. And then the studio outright rejected Laura Dern, saying not a bankable choice. It then gets to Jodie Foster. Is this the greatest case of serendipitous casting since Harrison Ford is Han Solo, or not?
Yeah, I think I'd read also that she was interested in the role, and it was kind of self-championing as well, which obviously helps in, but
she even tried to get the rights to the movie.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's interesting though because obviously bankable star, like is an important thing because she is the main character really. Like I think Anthony Hopkins is in like 20% of the movie. Like it's not. It's if she fails, this movie is nothing. Like it really needs to
Mhm.
be her story. And yeah, but no, I think it's funny. I was just listening to another podcast on the network, Missing Frames, about Contact, which is also Jodie Foster, but not the same Oscar level performance as this one, but a different time, different era.
True.
No, I think she was perfect for this. I think she conveyed the professionalism, the emotion in the moment, the trying to get her man, but also, just her interactions were really amazing. That was the other thing I was trying to figure out was, again, like, why is this called The Silence of the Lambs? Like, I never knew why. It seems like a very bizarre title. And obviously, once you've seen the movie, it makes total sense because of her nightmare and that experience with the lambs being killed. But before knowing that, it was like, that why is that? It's obviously in the book, I'm assuming, was successful too. Otherwise, there's no reason to keep the title.
Yeah. I think that your previous point about how the movie is shot with them looking at the audience, I think that also helps a lot because I think Foster manages to connect on it. Like, she wins an award for this, sure, but Anthony Hopkins steals so much attention for his performance that I think people overlook exactly how key Foster's ability to connect with the audience and disarm the audience through that stare that's necessary is really key to the success of the film. But, while we're speaking of casting, of course, Demme did originally approach Sean Connery to play Hannibal Lecter. And Tristan, I know that you think this immediately would make the film better. Please defend your choice.
Only if he's doing his Russian accent.
Yes. Well, that's
Russian,
key.
Scottish
That's
accent. Yeah.
I was going to say by Russian accent, you mean just his normal Scottish accent. Yeah.
Yes. But with Russian. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just, and obviously it wouldn't have been as good, but I'm trying to think of the positives. There's not many. Because I'm trying, Sean Connery's he's a large man. Like, often people don't realize how large he actually was. And so I think he definitely would have brought like an imposing, bravado to it just because of his physical size. But I think Sean Connery would have brought, I know this is going to sound weird, but I think he would have brought a little bit too much levity to it. Like he would have brought some humor to it.
I agree.
And I don't think that's the right choice because the type of humor that Hopkins brings to it is based in the dark. Like, it's dark humor. It's not just, he's not going for the obvious joke. He may be a little jovial, like when he starts mocking her accent. Like, that's the kind of humor he goes towards. Like, Sean Connery would, like, I try to imagine Sean Connery giving the fava beans line, like he would say it matter of fact, like with a smile, like he'd say it matter of like, I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice key.
Kind of like how he talks in Entrapment, like when he's talking to Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Perfect example. That is exactly what he would have done.
And
I've never seen Entrapment.
He's instructing her, and it's like, do it again, do it, like that kind of tone would have been what we get.
Yeah, that do it, keep it taut.
Yeah,
keep it taut. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what would happen. There were some other people that were considered for the role, and it always amazes me how many people they go through. So, like, here, who knows?
I mean, granted,
how
but
true
some of
this
these,
is.
it's like we put their name on a list, but we never actually called them. Like, you have to take it a little bit with a grain of salt.
It's true. You have to exactly what Darren said, and I'm going to read you this list, but grain of salt list. Here you go. So, John Hurt, Christopher Lloyd, Dustin Hoffman, Patrick Stewart, Louis Gossett Jr., Robert Duvall, Jack Nicholson, Bobby De Niro. Reportedly, Jeremy Irons was asked but turned down the role because he played a bad guy and didn't want to do another dark
Klaus
character.
von Bülow.
Yes. I personally, even though Hopkins did a portrayal that can't be replicated, I could totally see Irons doing this.
I could see Daniel Day-Lewis, who was reportedly considered at one point. I could see.
I could see Daniel Day-Lewis doing Batman or Princess Di. You know, like it doesn't really.
Well, but I think also speaking to the imposing physicality that like Connery would bring, Daniel Day-Lewis is a tall and well-built individual as well. I think that part of the success that Hopkins has is he's not the type of guy that you walk down the street and you're like, oh, he could kick my ass.
Right. He's the everyman.
It's his manner, but it's his mannerism that unnerves you, where it's like, I can't, you know, like you could see him functioning in high society where it's like, I don't like going over to Dr. Lecter's place. There's something weird about the guy. What is it? I don't know. I don't like the way he stares at things. It's in your head, you know, like you could see that sort of situation.
So here's the thing though. John Lithgow said that if Anthony Hopkins said no, it would have been his. And I think that would have been an interesting movie too.
Yeah,
I think Lithgow could have done it.
I think he could have done it. I think Lithgow is a highly underrated actor. I think it's more just on what he's been given in life. But.
Well, I think Lithgow also has an ability to underplay his size so that he can seem a lot less imposing. He's very good with his physicality. And what's interesting is he had played in Brian De Palma's Raising Cain, which came out around the same time as this. So that's interesting because it's sort of in the same vein. Trust me, the characters are nothing alike, but it's sort of in the same vein where it's supposed to be like an in your head, unstable character sort of thing where he's completely locked down in some scenes and completely not. I'd have to revisit the film because I saw that in the theater too, and it's been a really long time since I saw it. But that's just to say it would be interesting to see Lithgow do that.
See, I feel with Lithgow and Connery, the angle I picture is kind of the creepy grandpa vibe. Like they'll get you with the charm, but behind it is a killer. And then a couple of times they let that mask slip and you see what's actually behind their intention and what they're capable of. And you kind of recoil versus Hopkins' portrayal was much more like you just look at him right from the get-go and you're like, this guy is messed up. Like even though
was never on.
The mask was never on.
But you could argue the mask was never on because he's already been caught. So he's like, I don't have to put the mask on anymore. It's fine.
Yeah, which isn't bad. I'm just saying that's the direction I would have taken it with Lithgow or Connery is more of the, oh, hi, dear. Like how like they're trying to make you feel at ease if like I'm just happen to be sitting in this maximum security cell. Like who knows why I was put here, but.
And if Daniel Day-Lewis did it, he would have imprisoned himself for 8 years just to really, really get into the character.
Yes. And yes, that's true. But Tristan, I know you haven't seen Manhunter. Have you seen Manhunter, Darren?
No, this is my first foray to this franchise.
I'd love for both of you to wind up seeing Manhunter because my brother's take on it. And I've always tried to see it, but like Hopkins, this movie has a very theatrical, like grand horror feel to it. Manhunter is much more of like a police procedural, and the interviews and the mannerisms. My brother's informed opinion was that Brian Cox is a much more real world Hannibal Lecter than Anthony Hopkins would have been. Which is not to say he doesn't like Hopkins' performance, but he's like, I look at Brian Cox, he's like, that's the kind of guy you see on the tapes that is talking, that has done this serial killing sort of thing. Whereas Hopkins has a very theater presence about him. Again, not a negative. It's very much right for this film. I mean, we have basically Arkham Asylum that he's trapped in. Yeah. And it's like, I'm pretty sure this place isn't passing federal inspection, after a certain point where they're kind of like, I don't think you can keep people in these cells, honestly. This doesn't seem really right.
Hopkins, Hannibal Lecter knows he's in a movie. Not that he breaks the fourth wall, but like he's giving it that extra 110% in every moment because that's what you do.
Demme even actually, I think it was Demme who said that he wanted Hopkins to look directly at the camera when it tracks to the right to kind of not literally break the fourth wall, but to present him as all-knowing, where he is just like he's the narrator who knows what's going on, and Clarice is the one who has to work for it. Like, they're not working together to figure this stuff out. He is blessing her with his knowledge. And that's actually one thing that I always find really interesting about this movie is the cinematography and the blocking, where there's so many extreme close-ups and there's so many times when the characters are looking directly at the camera. But if you look at Starling, she never looks directly at the camera. It's always just a little off to the right or a little off to the left. And where if you look at the FBI director's character, he's looking directly at the lens. Crawford. You look at her graduation buddy, she's looking directly at the lens. Lecter's looking directly at the lens, but she's always just a little off to the left or right. And sometimes it's when the scene is getting much more intense, they get a little bit closer and closer to the face and a little bit more and more in line with the lens. And I always thought that was fascinating because it's so in your face. It makes you aware of the camera and what's going on, but not in a negative way that takes you out of it.
I definitely think that, and this will sound weird because usually you say, oh, you have to see Top Gun Maverick in the big screen. I definitely think that seeing this movie on the big screen was a decidedly different experience than seeing it at home for the first time, because those extreme close-ups, I mean, the people are bigger than life. That face is right on top of you when you're sitting there in the theater. And I think it's extremely effective. Like, this is one where if they said we're going to re-release this in theaters for an anniversary, I would rush out to see it on the biggest, best presentation that I could, because it is very unnerving to have that happening, 4 times taller than a human being actually is, sort of thing. Like, that just kind of freaks you out, sort of thing. But
which is really interesting to me because, like, close-ups like that is a very TV thing to do. Like, we see way more close-ups on a television show than we do in a movie. Because in a movie, you want to show the landscape, you want to show the distance between two people, you want to showcase the scene. And with TV, it's really just about the character work going back and forth and getting through the plot. And like with 3:10 to Yuma, the remake, so much of that was close-ups, and it made it feel like TV. But with this, it didn't feel like TV.
I think, honestly, it's because just the way that it's shot. I think that I know how this will sound, but I think that because of the way that the focus is handled and the framing is handled, and also the pacing, because on TV you get more close-ups, but it's a lot of quick back and forth. Whereas this, the camera stays. And I think that's what really makes it work as an unnerving thing, is like Lecter sits there and it's like, yeah, if it's on TV, he delivers his line and it cuts, but it will hold on him for an extra second or two. And it's like, he's done. Why am I still looking at him? And then it flips back.
And I mean, I'd have to look at it. I'm not going to say there's zero of this type of shot because I'd have to check again, but the vast majority of the shots between the two are just straight on at her and straight on at him. There's not an over his shoulder. There's not a, oh, this is where they are in relation to each other. I mean, you get that from the straight on shots, but it's very like we are in our own little world in this moment of dialogue between these two characters, and the glass, the plastic between them. I mean, I don't know if that's a standard thing at maximum security Arkham prisons, but that versus bars was much, much better. I mean, you had the, a support beam or something in the middle so it wasn't like he was open to standing over there, but I would, and we do get the bars a bit in the second, interrogation location, but it works so well to be able to clearly see each other. The way
that was I mean, I know what I'm going to say is obvious, but like that was a conscious decision by Demme and the production crew and the what's the word I'm looking for, John? The
designer.
Thank you, production designer. Where it gives a much more intimate feel between Clarice and Lecter, because the bars, even it just adds separation. It just it shows you that there is that inside and outside. But with the glass, it's much harder to distinguish the inside from the outside, especially when you're doing close-ups, because when you're doing an extreme close-up back and forth, you forget that the glass is there. You forget that but if there's a bar in the middle of his face, or even off to the third, it detracts from it. And I think in the novel there was bars.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think that was a great decision. And I also think that kicked off this trend in cinema, where whenever you have a really, 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 really bad guy,
they're in the plastic cell
behind glass. Yeah, he has to be behind glass, no matter what. No matter if it's a Star Trek film, a Bond film, a psycho killer film, doesn't matter. He is that mother is going to be behind glass.
Well, it also is very effective just as a very quick visual cue to the audience, where this is a row of serial killers and people who are just beyond reclamation, beyond any sort of rehabilitation. And it's bars. And it's an immediate signal of, this guy's special. This guy is so super
glass.
special.
He's very different. Yeah.
He can't hide from anybody. But I think that, so much of what works about this film is just the performances that Demme gets from the cast. And so I want to stick with it, because I want to call out very specifically Anthony Held as Dr. Chilton.
So great. Such an underrated actor.
Yeah.
It also requires such a deft touch to be regarded as the sleazy character in a film about the FBI chasing down a guy who's skinning people and the psychotic that they consult with to catch him. But you think of this movie and you're like, oh yeah, no, Dr. Chilton's the sleazeball. It's like, how does that process in your brain? Do you know what a special performance that is to get that reaction out of the audience? It's crazy. It's crazy.
He is an actor that my dad often talked about. Well, not specifically Anthony Held, but that type of actor where that is the career that you want to have as an actor, where you make a great living. You're in lots of stuff. You're seen all the time, but you can go to Disney World. You can go to Starbucks. You can live your life and not be, you can be respected by your peers, but you're not going to be, you're not like Jim Carrey in Rio de Janeiro, where you're just crowded by thousands and thousands of people just because of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And again,
that's how Hannibal gets you, because he knows where you go.
Yeah, he knows where you're going to be.
Now, obviously, I'm just talking about the ancillary things of it, but this guy, he works when he wants to, and he's such a perfect. Everything he's in is just, he brings what he needs to the role.
I also want to give a special shout out to Frankie Faison, who plays Barney.
Yes.
Because he's the one carryover. He's in Manhunter in a small role. He's the only actor to be in all three of these movies. And
I think he's in 4, isn't he?
Is he in Red? I think they probably put him in Red Dragon. But that was the Brett Ratner adaptation. There's we should do a special episode about adaptations and just compare, because we were talking about book adaptations before we started recording, and how Manhunter,
yes, he was in Red Dragon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like Manhunter is a spiritual adaptation of the book Red Dragon, and it gets the tone, but it's its own thing. And then the Brett Ratner Red Dragon is a very faithful adaptation in terms of plot moments and points, but you'll wind up understanding, the difference in filmmaker when you see the two next to each other, sort of thing. But
I liked Red Dragon.
It's no Manhunter, but you have a good time at the theater.
I haven't compared the two, and I will.
I know you will. I know you will. But Frankie Faison has this one moment in the film that I think also helps define Chilton's character, and also even helps define Lecter's, where Lecter has the mask on and Chilton's talking to him about how they lied to you. I can get you the deal. They didn't have any deal. And Faison is standing there in one shot next to Lecter, who's just staring ahead at Chilton, and you see him giving side eye, and his face very much reads, Doc, you sure you want to do this? Like, this is not a good idea. You know, like he's nervous about the guy he's standing next to. And it's such a little moment. And it's just I think it's those tiny moments. Everybody justly pays attention to Foster and to Hopkins and to Held, but it's those, even the little supporting stuff, even from Tracy Walter, there's a great moment. They bring in Roger Corman and George Romero, and they have little tiny moments too. And I think it's just so important to recognize that the supporting cast really lifts everybody in this film. So
I love that Tracy Walter's the Undertaker, because of course he's the Undertaker.
Of course he is. Yeah, it makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
In that scene where Lecter is talking to Chilton, there's a moment where Chilton asks Barney to leave, and I mean, I'm pretty sure I caught it, but like right at that moment, Lecter says like Barney as he steps away, and it was almost kind of like don't leave me, Barney, like I don't want to go down this path that this moment is going to unlock, or something like that.
I'd have to revisit because the thing is that actually ties into my next question to you, because this is your first viewing. I know for a fact that I have a certain level of blindness to any flaws that are in this movie, because I have loved it for 30 years, sort of thing. As somebody coming to it fresh, does everything work? Is there any fat on this meat? Or is this, did you see this as something where it was tight, it was focused, and it was well put together? Or is this something where I'm blind to certain problems or things that should have been cut out?
No, I think it works on all cylinders. It establishes really quickly. I love how seeing her, like during the opening titles when she's like training at the FBI, like we're already learning about her and what kind of person she is. We're not wasting those moments of film just panning around, looking at nothing and showing all the titles. No, we're following our main character, even though she's not really talking. The way she's interacting with this training course is already establishing this character. Not there's really no wasted moments in this movie that aren't either furthering her story or Anthony Hopkins' story, or even Chilton, who actually has a fairly sizable impact on the story. I'm not going to say a size of a role, but on like the choices he made. The interesting moment, and I'm not saying this is a negative, but first time watching this, not knowing how the story is going to go, I did suspect that it was Hannibal as the downed cop who was going to be taken into the. I didn't realize he had cut off his face. So I was kind of a little bit like, oh wow, he is so committed to escaping that he's cutting his own face to not be recognized, and that's what I thought was happening, and then. Yeah, it just obviously plays out like that. But that's also like watching a ton of films and kind of knowing how stories are going to go like that.
Sure.
That's piecing it together. And I don't detract that. I'm not saying, oh, that movie made it too obvious that that's where it's going. Like it was all of those, the tempo and the pulse of the film of, you're just holding your breath at times, and the juxtaposition of the ringing bell, like as Clarice is going to the house, and the cut of like, oh, it's the wrong house, it's the house. I mean, we've seen that trope a million times now. Like that is very common or used in a lot of different ways, but it's used so effectively, and you're just like, oh dang, she is in the house of the monster. Is she going to escape? And it just gets worse from there. But no, I would say it, again, only as its first viewing, but there's like no fat on this movie. The story moves along. It's under 2 hours. It goes so quickly, but it's just a fun ride, and it's different than modern movies, I would say. And again, not in a bad way, and not that modern movies are bad, but the way it's told, it's I'm not surprised that it won Best Picture. I'm not surprised that it's crowned with so many accolades because it's just a really well told film.
Now, there are some, I'm not in this number, but there are some who feel that the James Gumb storyline feels sort of ancillary. That basically they're more invested in everything else. They love Ted Levine's performance, a performance that in a sense becomes his curse, because once people saw Ted Levine in this role, he was never anything else. Like every time he showed up in any movie whatsoever, he's in Heat, right? Like later in the 90s, he's in Heat. And my brother and I are watching Heat. Ted Levine walks on screen as a cop and we both go, Buffalo Bill. And like, it just sticks with you.
Friggin' Monk, man. He's in Monk for years.
Right? But this is
which
what
for
he's
me
known for.
was because I hadn't seen this one. For me, it was like, oh, that guy from Monk is in this movie. So I had the reverse.
Well, that, you know, I'm sure he would be pleased to meet you because plenty of people love to imitate. And Buffalo Bill is sort of an amalgam of Ed Gein and Ted Bundy. Like the couch thing is straight out of Bundy's MO. He actually took two people. I think it was two people that way. It was at least one, but I think it was two people with the I need help moving a couch thing. But yeah, there are those who
set
argue,
in Illinois, you know.
Yeah, you know.
But that makes sense. Like I was looking at Ted Levine's history, and yeah, you know, he's here and there in TV movies and a few episodes and whatnot. But it's not till Monk when he becomes a series regular, which is in 2002, which is like that's like 10 years later. So yeah, it stopped him from, you know, I often will love looking at actors and their, you know, portfolio of like, okay, they were in this and then they're a lead for like 8 years and then they have a little period where they aren't anything and then they maybe jump into a new project. And yeah, I would say it's definitely worth saying that, yeah, this prevented him from being a main lead in a TV show, at least on the television side, for 10 years because of that. He had to age a little more and distance a little more from that character.
But Tristan, how do you answer that criticism? You know, that people suggest that maybe there's a little bit too much time with Gumb. That's
really interesting that people think that because
it's
Hopkins
not a lot of people. Movie. It's not a lot of people.
Well, because Hopkins was in the movie for 23 minutes or 24 minutes. Like that's his screen time is 24 minutes. And he got the best lead actor Oscar. I think it was the second shortest amount of time for an actor at that time that he got it in 91. And so the fact that some people think that Buffalo Bill is the ancillary story, I don't really see them as separate. I see them as completely intertwined. It's I mean, the entire reason why we're with Lecter is so that we can catch Buffalo Bill. That's the entire point. So I don't get that at all. I don't see that at all. And when you hear the number of 24 minutes, and which is only like 20% of the screen time, it's kind of like the Darth Vader syndrome, where you think Darth Vader is just ever present in Star Wars, but he's really not. And that's the beauty of this bad guy. That's the beauty of this villain, is that he does such a commanding performance and such a unique one that he feels like he's always there. And I just want to say I love Ted Levine's voice work in it, where you know, he has a very distinct voice. And I was talking about this before we hit record with Darren, where he kind of talks in his throat and in the back, like just in the back of his throat, a little bit like this. And, you know, you put the lotion in the friggin' basket, you know, it's just like that kind of thing. But like before he was doing that, like when she wasn't listening to him, he was still in that, it puts the lotion on its skin, you know, like he just said, very, very floaty, very, you know, feminine kind of voice. But then he gets into his normal Levine voice, which is like, argh! And just the fearlessness of it, where the dance in front of the camera was his idea. And like for an actor to put themselves out there where he's playing with his nipple ring, where he's in like a kind of this silk gown, not gown, but like robe. And, he tucks himself between his legs and just bears himself in front of millions of people for all time. And that was his idea. And it, made and simultaneously hurt his career. I mean, that is bravery and that is commitment.
I agree. I mean, I'm in the camp where I think that Levine makes that whole thing work because of the fact that they even have the dialogue where they say, no, Bill isn't this or that. He's his own guy. He's his own thing. Like he's messed up in his own way. You can't tack him into any bucket that you're trying to put him into.
They did especially in 91, they did a really good job of making sure that they weren't painting with a broad brush.
They're not villainizing a group of people. They're like, this guy is just a psych is well, as I paint people. But no, I think you're right.
Yeah, he's not a transsexual. He's
not anything. He's just broken. And it's you got to catch him because he's not this way for any other reason than he's himself. And that's just him. And, I think that is a very good thing. I think another very good yet puzzling thing for me is the editing. Darren, you mentioned that ending. To this day, when I watch the ending and the bell is ringing while you're seeing the FBI ring the doorbell and everything, I know what's coming and I still get tense. Because I'm like,
you can hear the audience cry out when the door opens and it's her, and you're like,
yes.
Oh
no,
like this is really bad. And and then we live in a time of video games, and when you play video games, it's like, there's no fear. There's no chance of death for reality. It's not reality. You're just running around, fighting and all that stuff. But whenever you play a video game with the HUD map turned off and you have no idea where other people are, all of a sudden you're in a horror movie because they could be around any corner. And the way they play out that scene of, this trainee FBI agent, taking it door by door where he could be behind any door and the doors never stop coming was so heart pounding as you just feel, and then the lights go out and you're like, it was so well done. So well done.
And they did such a great job of establishing that he has those goggles beforehand. So they just don't come out of it nowhere.
True. And although it is one of the things where if you know how those goggles really work, it's like he gives away his position because the little eyes light, you're like, there he is back. So, but it's fine. In 91, it wasn't common knowledge.
We weren't all experts on crime fighting duels.
One thing I do want to talk about is the theme of sexism in this film, where how great it was used, because it's a theme. It's not a plot point. It's not the point of the motion picture. It's not even the point of the character, but it's the theme that it's ever present. It's something that she constantly has to deal with. And none of the other trainees make any jokes. None of the other trainees are ostracizing her. But you can see from the extras where their eyes go, their eye placement, where they're looking her up and down. They're clearly leering at her, like from the officers in the Ohio. I think it's Ohio town.
Yeah,
and
where she even calls him out, and she's like, "You're." They look to you, and you're setting an example that I shouldn't be taken seriously. And she's not. And
also Chilton. Immediately, John, you talked about how like he's the skeezy guy in a room filled of psychos, but like the first time we see him, like he's hitting on Clarice, and you're just like, like it's just so unprofessional and everything like that.
It becomes extremely uncomfortable when he's trying to be smooth And then she clearly rebuffs and is like, no, I'm not sticking around. I got to get back tonight, which is a beautiful piece of dialogue because you hear Crawford tell her, come back. I don't need this till Wednesday. And it instantly establishes her.
That's what I thought too. I'm like, wait, you don't have to get back. Oh, yeah, you just don't want to be here.
Right. But it instantly establishes her as a very quick thinker because she knows she can shut this down immediately by saying, I got it back tonight. He expects this on his desk now. And what's great about Held's performance in that moment is that his whole demeanor changes afterward. Once he realizes that she will never have any interest in him, that's when he becomes the a-hole. He just doesn't even bother hiding it anymore.
I get major Walter Peck vibes from his performance, like from Ghostbusters, where it's just, yes, this is true. This man has no dick.
Well, you put the wrong person in any bureaucratic role, and they'll make everybody's life.
Or also the warden in Shawshank Redemption. I mean, again, different character, but just that we all know that type, that person that has a mode of power and they really shouldn't have it.
The sad little king of the sad little hill. Yeah.
But here, Tristan, I always love to make the joke referencing back to Gone Girl with your editing insights on that one. I love to do it.
I regret ever saying
but
that.
But the thing is, I love doing it because it reminds everybody to go to the archives at thenerdparty.com. And if you haven't listened to it, you can go back to the archives of Houselights and go ahead and hear us talk about Fincher, because this show started as House of Fincher of all things. And now here we are in the House of Demme. But this was up for Best Film Editing at the Oscars. Did not win. Take me through it. Do you see something technical where there's any shortfall? Is there anything you would have done differently in putting things together or how you would have cut it? Is there any sort of technical approach here where you're like, yeah, it's good, but this could have been done tighter?
Yes. There's a specific scene that comes to mind that just grinds the movie to a halt. I mean, up until this moment, we are moving along, we are trucking, we're even the long scenes feel short because of how good the performances are and because of how good the editing is, how good the cinematography is, the direction. Everything's firing on all cylinders until right after Lecter escapes, because we're gripping, and then you think that would be, like a point of no return. Like once Lecter escaped, it's just
he's
like,
out.
Boom.
Like that was out. What we feared.
Yeah, that's what we feared. He's out. Now we're gonna go all the way to the climax, but then we grind to a halt with Clarice going to one of the victims' houses, and then she's going through, like, she's talking with the father. She's going slowly through the house. She's going slowly through the room, and reviewing everything. Finds those photos. And then she figures out that it's the dress. That she looks at the dress with the diamond patterns and realizes what Buffalo Bill is trying to do. That whole scene is kind of pointless because it doesn't matter that we know his motivation.
Yeah, we already know who he is.
She calls him up. She calls up the director and he says, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm in a plane marked California Air Force," even though we're in Illinois, or like going to Illinois or anything like that, starting from Quantico. But it doesn't matter that she finds out that he's making a woman's suit, and so it doesn't add anything to the plot. It doesn't add anything to the story. It just slows everything down.
So if you were, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, I was just like, yes, you need a moment to breathe, but I feel like that breath became too long of an exhale.
I understand what you're saying. You're saying that this is something where if you were sitting in that editing bay with Demme back then, you'd have been like, okay, John, I love you, but we gotta bring this in tighter. And you would have fought for this one. You would have fought for this to be okay, fine. We can't get rid of it, but we got to make it faster. To get there.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like the best thing to do would be like either transpose it Like, don't get rid of it, because we cannot go from Lecter escaping directly to the plane or directly to Clarice showing up at Buffalo Bill's house. You need to have something in between. And so I would have had something different or tighten it up.
Fair enough. I think that's a fair criticism.
But out of a 2-hour movie that was Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, I mean, that's not bad.
And Best Adapted Screenplay.
Yeah.
Which I think it
absolutely.
very much deserved. And it is, to your point earlier about how like 65% of movies are adapted books, it's a lot tougher to do it well than I think people really give it credit for sometimes, to get something that tonally, this is like The Silence of the Lambs, having read the book and seen the movie, it's very much, in terms of experience, it's very much something where I love the book and I love the movie. It's like Jurassic Park, where it's like they're each their own thing. And that's when a director does it right, or a screenwriter does it right. They're their own thing because they're their own mediums, right? It's why Watchmen is so difficult to adapt, is because that was made for its specific medium, not for film. So how are you going to do this sort of thing? And but Darren, were there any moments where you similarly felt that it lagged, where you were watching it and you were like, okay, let's just move along here?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with what Tristan said about that moment, but I also agree that you need something there. So I don't know what the answer is. It is interesting because it's, when Hannibal escapes, it's kind of a exit stage left, and he's kind of out of the rest of the movie, and maybe we feel this counter because, like we've said many times, it's like a tale of two villains. There's the Buffalo Bill story and there's the Hannibal Lecter story, and they interweave, but in a really interesting way because, and that's, I think, also readily recognized by the average viewing audience. Like, if you ask someone what is Silence of the Lambs about, they're not going to be like, it's the search for Buffalo Bill. Like, nobody's going to say that. Like, that's factually true, but that's not what's permeated. It's Hannibal. And so, yeah, when he leaves, it's kind of like, what are we supposed to be feeling? Are we supposed to be feeling like he's going to go after Clarice? Is that what we're afraid of? But oh, wait, but change the channel back to Finding Buffalo Bill. We got to still do that. Okay, well, do we have enough time? Like, where are we on that? And it's like a gear change, and the gears kind of slip a little. But besides that, again, it's under 2 hours. There's very little fat on this entire film. It knows when to be fast and it knows when to be slow. I mean, you could say the whole ending is slow because she's going from door to door, but that needs to be. It needs to slowly build that tension of he could be behind every door. That would do a disservice if it was like, oh, door number 3, there he is. We made it. It's like, no.
Yeah, I think in the modern day, I'm very thankful that this director made it at this time, because in the modern day, I think you definitely get studio notes to have Lecter call her and tell her he's making a dress, Clarice. Goodbye. Click.
Right.
Like, I'm on my way out of the country. Here you go. And I think that they also would have wanted a more action-y ending, where it's either faster or more gunfire sort of thing going. Like, I can see these studio notes and I can watch.
Then there's a methane explosion for some reason in the house.
Yeah. One of the bullets misses and it hits his propane tank. You gotta get her out of there right fast and everything. And because
that's so accurate that it hurts,
isn't it? It does. It sucks. Thank goodness that this movie happened when it did, because otherwise it goes horribly wrong. But we're at that point. I gotta know. And Tristan, we'll kick it to you first, because Darren's the new guy here in the cell block. So I want to know from you, what do you rate The Silence of the Lambs? How many? Oh boy!
Lambs?
How many night vision goggles do you give it? How many night vision goggles?
Well, I mean, are we counting them as a pair, or
one set? It's one set.
One set. Okay,
one set.
Now, before I talk about, because I would have taken, I would have accepted How Many Precious Dogs,
The star of The Burbs, just 2 years prior,
and in Batman Returns, a year after
in
that,
1992.
Wow,
One of the best known dogs in
had
history.
such a pedigree.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and she's not a poodle. Everyone, her name's Darla, and she's a Bichon Frise.
Well, there you go.
But here we go. Yes. So for me, you make fun of me because I gave Gone Girl a 4.5 because of there was 2 or 3 editing things that I just really irked me. Even though it's a fantastic film, it's an amazing film. It's one of Fincher's best, and I wanted to give 4.5 to The Silence of the Lambs because of that post Lecter escape scene. But so much works so perfectly, and this is a classic. This has one of the greatest heroines of all time, one of the greatest villains of all time, the greatest villain on some lists, on some really popular lists. And so this is one of those films that is just so iconic that I could be curmudgeon and give it 4.5 for nitpicking here and there, but honestly, just it won all those Oscars for a reason, and so this is in our minds forever and is permeated. So I have to give it 5 stars. Like, if I saw it in 91, maybe I'd give it 4.5. I know I'm arguing between a 5 and a 4.5, which is almost nothing. I mean, Darren, you don't even give half stars, so
for just this
you're really
reason,
laughing at me.
It's easy to make
Yeah.
a call.
Yeah. So I give it 5 stars. This is a 5-star film, and what a way to start off the House of Demme.
Mm-hmm.
All up from here, right?
Yeah.
Right?
We will see.
We'll see.
Okay, Darren, this is your first experience with The Silence of the Lambs. And so I think it's only appropriate that we ask, how many census takers do you give The Silence of the Lambs?
No, yeah, I think like Tristan said, it's a 5-star film. There's nothing real okay, I could look at a nitpick, but does that really take away from what this film is? This film fires on all cylinders. I love how it establishes things. It's one of those things where when you experience well-told film, you almost don't realize why it's well told, because it is well told, because you don't notice that you're spending good amounts of character building, and your flow and your ebb moves well because you're just in it. And that's this film. It's when it's jarring and all of a sudden, you realize, I have no idea the motivation of this character. Like, we spent 20 minutes with them and and it was all fluff, but that's not this film. And like we said, it won all these Oscars, but it's also one of those films where I don't feel like, but Anthony Hopkins he got this win, but he really should have earned it for that other movie that he did, but it was his due. No, he won it for this. Same with Jodie Foster, same with all the others. It's 91 and it swept all the big 5, which is very, very impressive. So yeah, and even not being a huge horror fan, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it was much more psychological thriller than I was expecting. The gore is a movie. There's enough of a moviness to it that I was not repulsed. It's not torture porn. It's not, it's not in that. We don't actually see them suffer. They're just dead, and you just know that they are dead, and they are not going to be getting out. And I don't even mind the fact that I figured out that he was being escorted out in the ambulance, because that's just good storytelling, having little seeds, here and there. And I attribute that just to watching a lot of films and thinking like, well, how is he going to get out? Like, because he knows, he's very, very smart, and he knows that he's got to have a way out, and he's playing with the elevator. Yeah, no, five stars for sure. And I think I do want to. I'll probably watch Hannibal next. I think because that's the Ridley Scott sequel, correct?
That is the Ridley Scott sequel, and I would
Okay.
love to talk about it with you because
It's not a historical epic, but
no. So he doesn't have to worry about accuracy quite so much, but it's fascinating because I read the book, saw the movie, and Jodie Foster specifically wouldn't come back for that film because of the ending of the book, but they changed the ending for the film.
Interesting.
So I would love to know your take on the original versus the new ending, and that's also the film that basically derailed Gary Oldman's career for quite some time because he was apparently very difficult when it came to talking about screen credit and stuff like that.
I mean, do we pause on the House of Demme and then just do the House of Lecter for a little bit, where we watch Mindhunter, then not Mindhunter, excuse me, we watch Hannibal,
Manhunter,
then Red Dragon, and then just circle back with Manhunter? That'd be fun.
that could be fun. We might be calling that audible, but before we call any sort of audibles, I too give it 5 stars. I give it 5 servings of fava beans. I give it 5 bottles of Chianti. I give it 5 dinners with Anthony Held's head on a plate because I remember the audience chuckling when you saw, Lecter walking after him. There are so many things that are so wonderful about this film. There's a reason it's become a cultural touchstone. There's a reason it was released at a time when people felt it was too early in the year for an Oscar nominee to have been released. And it was so embraced that when the nominations came around, it was like, yeah, no, this is a pretty great film. Like, there are so many things that are fantastic about it. And I think for any flaws that might be there, the performances, for a director to get this level of performance from every single person in the film, from bit player up to marquee star, it's virtually unheard of. And so, yeah, definitely a 5-star film. But maybe we will, let's let people in on the process. Do we want to detour to House of Lecter, or do we want to go through the House of Demme and then do House of Lecter afterward, double back? How do we want to do this, gents?
Maybe we could hear from you guys first, like the listeners, where you could go to facebook.com/the Nerd Party. Let us know there. You could go to Twitter @Join Nerd Party, or you can find us at the Nerd Party by going to the Nerd Party /contact, selecting Houselights, filling out the form, sending us the email that way. And then let us know, would you want us to complete House of Demme, or should we do House of Lecter? I mean, that's something new that we've never done before, where I know this is
we follow a character versus the director.
Yeah, this is a director-focused podcast, but...
Well, I think actually, since we just came out of House of Scott, like we're doubling back to Ridley Scott really quickly to be like, okay, here's Ridley Scott trying to take on this genre. How does that work? And then here's Brett Ratner in this genre, and how does that work? And then, here's Michael Mann, one of the greatest directors of all time. Did he blaze a trail or not? That sort of thing. So
I don't know. I kind of like that,
guys. But democracy. It's a quaint idea. We'll put it out there for everybody else to decide. Hey, we will hand this power back when our crisis of podcasting has abated. But Darren, where can people find you online?
They can go to drsci-fi.com, check out my projects, builds, other podcasts, and all that greatness.
Tristan?
The Insane Robin, wherever merchandise is sold.
And just look for Kessel Junkie and Curse My Name online. KESSELJUNKIE. We will see you next week in the house of whatever you vote for. So tune in then.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.